Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, friends, and my esteemed panelists. I hope all of you are safe and sound, and I would like to thank Exito team for giving us this opportunity. And no, as Aditya mentioned, I'll be your moderator for the session. My name is Atul Govil, and I work for India Glycols. Just a brief about our company. We started operations as a chemicals, petrochemical manufacturer in the late 80s. And over the last several years, we have diversified into other verticals, including liquor, industrial gases, guar gum. And I think with the trust of our customers, we have touched almost 6,000 crores in sales last financial year, and we hope we would better that in this year. And my role in the company is to lead business transformation projects and also technology-related initiatives. And for the namesake, I'm designated as the Chief Transformation Officer and Head of Technology. That's what I do for a living here. And why I'm here is for the last few years, we have implemented some of these IoT-based projects. We have done some of these leading ERP implementations in our setup. And the purpose was to track key performance indicators linked to the identified units and operations. So that's the basic premise. So I think let's come to today's agenda. Let's talk about today's agenda. The agenda is about streamlining manufacturing functions, leveraging IoT. Okay, that's the core. And how do you integrate ERP and the IoT solutions? That's the focus. So I think the topic is extremely relevant, and more so in current times, because you can figure out with COVID, with the physical distancing, social distancing norms, you have to have remote operations, and certainly you can't build an aeroplane in your drawing room. Certainly some kind of operations have to go on at the shop floor. So, but what all can be done remotely, how you can facilitate remote working to that extent is what is important. So I would request all of you to give your undivided attention, so to say, over the next 35-40 minutes and get some practical insights from the practitioners of these new age technologies. So just to give you a context that we, as most companies are struggling to remain afloat, okay, in these difficult times caused by COVID. So the core focus today is to lower operational costs. That's in the short term, I would say. And that's the theme. How do we do this? And of course, we also talk about the human safety angle. That's extremely important. That while we operate, the human safety security should not get jeopardized. And what we'll do is, as a part of the structure of the program, we would have the Q&A towards the end, if we have time, of course. And let's keep it interactive and have our questions ready. And so what I would do is, we would start with the panel discussion now, and I would ask Parna, you first, and when I ask a question, I would request the panelists to please introduce themselves, and then maybe they can respond to the question. The first one, so I would request Parna, if you are there, to yeah, okay. So the question is is usage of technologies like IoT or industrial IoT, so to say, still a futuristic vision, or it's a current day business imperative or a norm for manufacturing organizations, particularly in your industry vertical? And why do you think so? That's my question.
Okay, thanks Atul for such an interesting topic. I think this is the talk of the hour, and I believe, as you rightly mentioned, because of the pandemic situation, I think the digital thrust in every organization has really had a huge focus. And
video. No, we were able to see that. It was just a little bit of lag, maybe because of. You were able to see my video? Oh, then you saw I took a
I would like to request Mr. Nikhil Joshi to disable his audio and video. Yeah, we can go ahead.
Okay, so It's very pertinent in this point that when we are, just going through this pandemic and still India is clocking 90,000, 1 lakh per day. I think it's very important. One side we fight the pandemic, and second thing, as enterprises, as organization, as a country, I think we fight the bigger battle with all the the other competition in the world, and remain as a winner. I mean, at the end of the day. So I think it's a very challenging time, and I represent a company which is around 1.3 billion dollars group turnover. Its name is Minda Group. We play in the auto ancillary space. We have around 28 business lines and a lot of R&D, and a lot of manufacturing locations. We have around 70 plus manufacturing locations across India and outside India as well. Coming back to your point, Atul, whether IoT is really pertinent or not, whether we still play with the ERPs and the jargons and the CRMs and SRMs, and IoT we think about 2030 or 2025. I think this is the right time to space out yourself in terms of what is your priority, because you have seen, like, during pandemic, without these platforms, whether it is Microsoft Teams or Zoom or Webex or all the biggies, so without those, I mean, our survival was in a big problem, in a big question mark. And we were able to connect around 4,000 people within just 2 days time. I mean we never imagined this could have happened so fast. And as you know, in a manufacturing organization, adoption of technology is always a big challenge.
Yeah.
And not only that, the management also thinks it's a cost center. So that's a predominant problem we all have. You also facing the same problem for a very long time. Now, this IoT is one thing. What we understood is, I'll give an example. We are coming up with a plant in Pune, near Pune. It's near Ahmednagar, so which is going to be one of these best smart factories in this country. So from this, get in to get out completely, we are putting IoT in place, and it's basically two-wheeler alloy wheel factory. So we are going to supply to our OEMs as usual. But the biggest difference between this factory and the other factories what we have is the focus on ERP or other traditional systems are taking a backseat. IoT, the visual factory, the integration, warehouse management, FIFO, traceability, these are taking the front seat. That is the change point. And not
Yeah.
only from the management, also from the people who are working. They are so excited to get it done. Now, whether it is relevant or not, as in today's point, see, IoT is maturing. We are in a transition phase right now. So I believe we are currently in industry 3.0, where we need to focus on 4.0 and look at some of the countries who are now talking about 5.0. So I think it's a big transition, but we have to really catch up fast. Whether it is China, Japan, or Germany, or USA, whoever are our competition in terms of our country, as business, as enterprises, and people. I think the competition is huge, and the scope is also unlimited. And I think, Atul, you know very well, we are working with NASCOM very closely.
Yeah.
I have come through 200 IoT players who are basically startups who are working very closely with all the organizations and setting up their shops very fast. So I think the opportunities are going to come up. Yeah, there will be some kind of lags in terms of budget availability, business case, use case, blah blah. All these things will come up, ROI, paybacks, and all this stuff. But I think
Yeah.
the future is bright, and we are going to bang on the door. I think
Interesting.
we are at the door. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. Thanks, Parna, for these great inputs, and I think we'll be interested to learn about how this Pune factory shapes up. We'll be very much interested, and maybe sometime soon we'll connect. So I think that brings us to another question here. That no, and this one I would like to go out to Vinayakji, considering his enriched experience in the domain of manufacturing, particularly in oil and gas and refinery setups. So I would like to ask Vinayakji that so what are some of these use cases which you would have deployed in your enterprise to drive digital transformation? No, and we are not talking about collaboration tools like MS Teams, and okay, that's fine. That's something which has become a basic hygiene now that you have to have it. But other than that, some of these important use cases which you think audience would be extremely interested to know. Over to you, Vinayakji. Are you there?
Vinayak ji is mute.
I think you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah,
Vinayak.
done that. Thank
Sure.
you. Thank you, Atul. And thank you for the opportunity to participate in this webinar.
Yeah.
So I'm basically a chemical engineer with 40 years of experience, out of which 34 years I have spent in Reliance Industries Limited. I superannuated just a couple of weeks back, and a large part of my experience was in green and brownfield projects, and a very large experience which almost for 3 to 4 years, when the big activity in Reliance had upon the transformation, where the standardization, digitization, and using the best IoT kind of tools available for improving the production, improving the reliability, improving the safety, and maybe with the many other objectives. Currently, I am senior advisor to one Phillips Townsend Houston-based company, and also I'm advisor to the board of one asset Lux company in Luxembourg. So coming to the use cases on the IoT,
yeah,
maybe some few years back, this digitization or using the Internet of Things in a chemical industry, it was a sort of a luxury or kind of thing nice to have. But as the margins are shrinking, and with we call it a VUCA world, it's a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So the entire energy world is becoming a VUCA world, with electric vehicles coming in, new sources of energy coming in, biofuels playing a bigger role, and at the same time, this carbon emission, which is bothering the world. So every country is pledging to cut down their emission and bring it to the desirable level. So it's not going to be a business as usual for a long time now. And the industries which have seen it much in advance and tried to do some modernization, they will certainly have an advantage to survive. Just to give some number is, if you look at the oil and gas entire, the shareholder value between 1990 and 2005, which was overall value of 13%. And if you look at between 2005 and 2019, it has just shrunk to 2%. If you look at the crude oil, which is, if it goes below $20, so almost 25 to 30% of the crude oil production will be uneconomical across the world. And the oil, why the crude prices have gone negative, because nobody can afford to shut down and restart the oil well. That's going to be very, very expensive affair instead of selling the crude oil at whatever price it was available. And today, the carbon emission, we are saying it should be 1.3 degree global warming. That is what the world will be sustainable. So considering all this aspect, the untapped potential, which is in oil and gas and the downstream industries, is over $600 billion with the use of IoT. So with IoT and ERP, and looking at the product life cycle entirely, if all the digital solutions are applied, then they're potentially $640 billion, which in terms of saving water, energy, and minimizing the carbon emission. So what were the couple of things which were done in Reliance? One was every single manual activity, which was first converted to a business process, which is either in SAP or some other platform. Then the tools which can automate all kind of optimization activity, whether it is monitoring of a plant, whether it is troubleshooting of a plant, whether it is reliability measures, those all were done. And the most important part, which is required in most of the chemical industry, is your process and asset. Those should be, you must have a connected processes and you must have a connected assets. So first is you connect the processes and connect the assets. If any abnormality is going to happen in the process and how that is going to damage your asset, if that connectivity is there, then there can be a huge improvement in the reliability which can happen. And what industry 4.0 can bring is, it's a capacity increase, capacity utilization increase, shutdown reduction by 50%, and there are many tangible kind of advantages. So just to give you a couple of things, like a furnace, whenever there's a shutdown, and if you are inspecting a large furnace or the large vessel, and the building of a scaffolding, removing of a scaffolding, that itself is a 12, 14 days activity depending upon the size. We have done the inspection with the drones now. And if you're utilizing the drone with the robotics, that inspection can be done within 24 hours. In very 12 days, where the 24 hours. That's the big thing. The piping, which are the kilometers long pipe racks, the inspection of those pipe racks, inspection of the flares, if you have seen in the chemical industry, those kind of, if you build the scaffolding to inspect the flare or want to send the people on that height, and if you want to run across the pipe rack to do the inspection, so that is where these drones come into the picture.
Okay.
The number of catalyst loading, which also can be done by the robotics. So these are very few things which have been implemented. And another important thing is the operator efficiency, like the people, normally what is required to be done and what is actually done, the gap is a competency. And if that competency, if it can be bridged with the good training facility, and how this training will happen. So we build the operator training simulator for every plant, and then there is the augmented reality in which an operator can walk through the plant, and you can give a abnormal situation that this something has tripped, go and take the action. Now the operator or the engineer, they walks into the plant and take the action, and the software which is built behind that does the assessment automatically. And so that type of training. So these are some of the use cases. There are many, considering the limitation of the time.
I think it is good.
So thank you.
Good. I think that was great. Vinayak, thank you for sharing your insights. I think that was just remarkable, I would say. I think that brings me to Jitendra ji. If you also might like to share your experiences in your setup, in your current setup, or one of your recent setup, wherein you would have worked, of initiatives to drive digital transformation, particularly in the wake of COVID. If you've started something, or maybe just before that, it'll be interesting to know. Over to you, Jitendra.
Yeah, hi Atul. Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Good to see connect after long with Atul.
Same here. Same here.
So, I mean, this we see as a great opportunity for the IT industry and the IT leaders. Yes, we have seen that there are many things which definitely was there our IT roadmap, like you mentioned about the IoT and the digital transformation, which was very much, but now this has changed the speed and the experience. Which was there my IT roadmap for 5 years, now it has converted into 2-year plan. And earlier was not been discussed IoT things and then the automation in the boardroom. Now it has become a hot topic of the discussion in the boardroom as how we can minimize the manual workflow and how we can enable the work from home, even in a normal situation, how we are going to, we have identified almost 1,500 employees can work from home whole of the retirement life. This is something which has triggered. Now, the objective of having this, as Mr. Vinayak mentioned about the VUCA world, and the VUCA world is since the inception of this globe, and we have experienced this type of strategy in the past also. But coming to the plant automation, whereas we can integrate some of the processes using the IoT and all, we have done very good project on warehouse management, where all we enabled our balances, our sensors on IoT driven applications. And the adoption of a cloud also has gone increase in our environment, which are fortunate to do work from anywhere. So the adoption of the cloud in our environment has taken a good shape. But another point what I want to touch upon is that the regulatory part. Because in our industry, those especially supplying to the US market, even the calculator is validated. So we do the validation of a calculator also. 2 plus 2 coming in the calculator is been validated. Whatever we do in Excel is validated. So this is the environment we live in, a highly compliance, where everything need to be governed and audited from the third party, especially from US FDA, MHRA and all. If we talk about the IoT, then definitely all phases of your IT delivery, like your IQ, OQ, PQ, and all the compliances need to be fall into that. But that will not stop the drive toward the IoT, because this is the world where all the regulators also doing the virtual inspection. Our 2 plants currently gone virtual inspections, and they got cleared also. The virtual audit. So this is what it is, a new normal, and this is what is the new learning in all the environment. As is given, the time has given opportunity, and we see that the positive side that this opportunity will transform definitely to us. Rather we wait for more time frame. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I think that was great. I think another interesting point is the regulatory aspect, because today, as we see the need for compliances, the regulatory requirements are getting more and more stringent.
Absolutely.
And especially around and also around emissions, not just around product quality and related aspects, but also around emissions. So I think it's extremely important that we leverage technologies in with a context. Of course, you just can't throw technology on every problem. Not every problem can get solved by technology, but yes, we have to think through radically, if I may say, to disrupt the comfort in which we have been living, because the disruption outside will otherwise force us out of business. I think well said. This brings me to another aspect. We've talking great about what is possible, what's the art of the possible using technology. Let's talk about some of the challenges. Okay, let's talk about some of the challenges which organizations, typically manufacturing, face in their journey to adopt new age technologies like IoT, AI, or ML in their setup. So I would request Farhan, if you could throw some light, basis your experience, on some of these challenges that you would have faced, and if you can throw a light on what exactly did you do to overcome, if so. Over to you, Farhan.
Right. Thank you so much, Atul. See, my name is Farhan. I head the company called Radico Khaitan. We are the 3rd largest liquor manufacturer in India. We have about 40 odd factories all across India. The total turnover last year we come out around 10,000 crore. So we are specialized in not even in IMFL business, which is Indian made foreign liquor. Even we manufacture the alcohol as well. So alcohol is a product which is being used not even by our company. It is also we are selling to our competitors like Parna Record and DIGOs. We have Asia's largest factory, which has been situated in Rampur, Uttar Pradesh. As you know that when we talk about liquor, there is a process called alcoholic fermentation. Now, this process is basically what it does. It basically convert the sugar content, which is your glucose or sucrose, into a small ATM, which is convert into ethanol and CO2. That process, as we are 1963 established in 1963, so we carry some equipment or some hardware, which is of course which is old as well. So putting sometime IoT is at risk, because sometimes it's not matching with the application that we are using at a factory level or at an operation level. So IoT is something basically which is at large has come as a savior for us. And as I said, that fermentation has a two stages. One is glycolysis and second is glycose, where the molecules is going to be spread into it. So understanding of such processes during the fermentation, when we talk about the technology that we deployed, was a personal experience of the manual processes. When we discussed this process with the operations head, he was more into it, how we can monitor it through a process where the systems will send me alert, because fermentations goes by product. Sometimes it takes 3 weeks, sometimes it takes 4 to 5 weeks as well. and there is a huge investments also into it. So he need to understand the kind of yeast which is going into it and what kind of stage that we are in. And of course, the byproduct, which is CO2, is also going to be come out. Earlier, it was wastage to the environment, and now there is a supplier that we are supplying to, like Coca-Cola and Pepsi, to whom we are selling to CO2 as well.
Great.
So conducting, consolidating CO2 at a level where we can, conduce it and sell it to, because it is online. So directly it goes to the tunnel, and then, we can save it and store it and sell it to the concerned parties. So for us, it was a challenge, that how we can monitor the two stages, I mean the different stages of augmentation, and looking at the IoT, which will not even help us. Basically, it will also give us a kind of comfort, which basically allow to understand the kind of stages that we are in. Yeah. And specifically the kind of the CO2 that we are generating, the volume of it. So at least the next truck or next distribution system can be organized in a way where the IoT is going to give a kind of input. Similarly, because we are 1963 company, so there are people though coming from 25 years of age or 30 years of experience with us. The people is a big challenge, because there is a mindset. And if you talk about the manufacturing, manufacturing is a mix of skilled or semi-skilled kind of the expertise that we have at a ground level. So teaching them about IoT, getting into a platform and using at a level where they can take a decision, because they are the master of their product, of their task. So teaching them at a level where they are age of, let's say, 60 or 65, it's a bit challenge, and sometime you feel also that, where you guys are, putting your efforts. But, once the things are set up in a way, because, IoT, the kind of stage that we are in, as Parna has also said, that we are into a phase where it is now establishing itself. There are challenges like securities or like platform which are available where the integration is going to be happen. So these are the challenges, and sometimes when you establish such a technology, you face other technical issues as well. But somehow, rather than, I would say, technology where you have ample of opportunity, which will help not even to increase the production, but it will also, it gives the alert, exceptions alerts to the people, those are at the ground level. It also helps to increase the productivity.
Great. I think well said, Farhan ji. And I think I just also want to add that you spoke about the legacy of the infra in place, especially for plants which have been in existence for more than 30, 40 years. I think, and what we need to factor is these control systems, these industrial control system, ICS as they are called, or maybe the SCADA systems, were always designed to work in isolation. So they were never designed to work in tandem with the IT systems. And hence, from a cybersecurity aspect, from a patching aspect, they were never designed such. Okay, so they have their inherent limitations, so to say, to be on a connected platform, and so that you have a connected factory, so to say. I think that's one important aspect, and you well said about the people aspect, because you may buy the latest or the greatest of technologies, but you have to have the user adoption. That's extremely important to actually make create value out of it. So I think that very well said. I think that brings me to a very interesting point, because Vinayak ji, you've had this great experience in manufacturing. I just wanted you to throw some light. We hear about these, the best of the breed of ERPs at one level, because manufacturing, you would need some kind of a transactional system to capture the business flow, or the flow of how the resources are getting consumed or utilized. But and at the other end, you also have the design aspects, wherein from a equipment or a product standpoint, you have a PLM, which captures the entire life cycle of the product or the machinery. So how do you think that does it make sense today that the IoT or these technologies, new age technologies, can actually integrate with the ERPs and the PLMs to have a greater data availability, so to say, and have a seamless view, provide a seamless view to the stakeholders of what's happening, not just at the operational level, but also at the design level. So your thoughts, Vinayakji?
Yeah. Thank you. The first is we talk about as I talked about the connected processes. So talking about lots of theoretical part. Let me give one practical example. In chemical plant, for everything you require a permit to work. Any maintenance which is required to be done, which is from the a safety point of view, all the conditions which make team to work safe have to be ensured by issuing the permit. Now here, when this we got everything in SAP, because large part of the Reliance processes, including operation, maintenance, HR, most of those are in SAP. So now this permit process, where the first is a notification is required, whether it is a plant or unplanned, whatever it may be. So that when that notification about the job goes into the system, now the system notification will be accepted by the maintenance team or electrical team, depending upon whatever job. And when they accept the job, then they will allocate the resources to job. And those resources are the number of the technicians, number of helpers, number of if any scaffolding or anything is required. So all those resource allocation is done into the system. Now this resource allocation, which is done for the job, it again talks to our contract management system, and where this where the value of these resources get registered somewhere. So whenever contractor is paid, so then based on amount of job which is delivered, so first we allocate the resources, and of course after the job is done, he certifies whether more are used or less are used. So that part. Now some spare is required. Let's say if you are required to change the bearing of the pump while doing the activity. Now this bearing again from the system, that the system will issue the material requisition slip, and as the bearing now this process gets connected to the PNC process. Now moment the bearing comes from the store, the inventory in the store which has been identified as the minimum inventory which is required for any activity. When the things goes below that, then the finance system will allocate the budget automatically, and the PR will be raised to the identified vendor in the system. And by the time your pump is maintenance is done, the the PO for the bearing has already been issued to the vendor. So this is a complete process connected. It's just one example I give. It also from the customer complaint, how you go to the production, that how the complete process have been collected. Now for the just 1 minute for the asset performance management, where the today we are in the age of a predictive maintenance, not even preventive maintenance and breakdown maintenance for the age-old thing. Even for the predictive maintenance is, if I'm supposed to maintain some asset every 6 months, why do we need that? So if you want to do it instead of 6 months, I'll say do it in 2 years, then how you're going to decide it? So that is where we are using the tool called the Meridian, which is pretty expensive, but which is a very popular tool. And when that all data gets into the field, then your reliability centered maintenance and reliability based inspection, everything is determined based on the data when you actually need it. So that can reduce your large number of the maintenance activity in the maintenance cost without compromising the reliability. And it also track the entire product life cycle of the compressor or big equipment since then it is received, how it is performing, and and we always believe, as far as the maintenance is concerned, your equipment should be always as it was delivered to you. And the moment you are unable to maintain, you must replace that. And so that again, life cycle management happens through the tool. So these are all IoT and the ERP, which are all interlinked there. Thank you.
Perfect. Well said. And I think with the cost of the sensors going down and the compute available at a far cheaper rate, I think these new age technologies which enable companies to drive and utilize these predictive maintenance practices It's not just about predictive maintenance. It's also about predicting a failure, and a failure can be catastrophic as well. And it can just not bring down productivity of the plant, but it can also have a bearing on human lives if it is so. So I think it's very important for companies to revisit their maintenance practices, as Vinayak you well mentioned. That we need to have a 360-degree view of what exactly needs to be done, and you identify those hotspots wherein those issues are most likely to occur. And there's a term I'm sure, being a chemical engineer, you would be using these the terms like HAZOP and
Yeah.
HAZAN, HAZOP and HAZAN. So I would like to also share this with our fellow panelists. That when we talk about HAZOP, what we do is actually it's like you bring these experts in the room, and they can talk about any process or a section of the process, and they will come out with 100 things in which a thing can fail, and then they also thought that what could be the consequence if this fails, that fails, and there are no good or bad questions. Anything can come out, but only thing is we have to come out with a plan that no, if this happens, what is our plan to either mitigate it, avoid it, or maybe live with it. If that's something which is still livable, you can manage it. So I think well said, and that brings me to Parna. I think Parna, one interesting thing, which I just also want to ask you is, considering that you are in the automobile sector, and there's a lot of disruption around electric vehicles and all that. So, what do you think? What the usage of IoT at the shop floor? How exactly can it create value for an enterprise? If you can give us 2-3 pointers, because we'll also have to now ask few questions, maybe one each from each of the panelists, and conclude thereon. Over to you, Panna.
Okay. So Atul, I think I missed 2 points. While we were students, we came out of the examination hall and then thought, okay, I had the answer, but now I can answer right now. So I have an opportunity right now. At least the exam is still not over. So one thing from the last pointer, 28% CAGR is there for IoT market in India. Point number one.
Okay.
Point number two is, yesterday we were talking with the Ministry of IT and Technology, telecommunication secretary. So he mentioned that the government is having a plan of 10 billion USD every year addition. So addition of 10 billion USD every year for smart technologies, which consist of smart city, IoT, and many other stuff. So just 2 pointers for your understanding. Okay.
Great.
So coming back to the point, so I'll just wrap up in 1 minute. See, if IoT is one thing which you have to understand, it is not only for the factory, it is also for the vehicle manufacturers. So when we talk about car-to-car communication, autonomous car, and many other stuff, electric vehicle, say for an example, electric vehicle is completely based on IoT technology. The LiDAR, the dashboard, the engine, everything is connected with IoT. So IoT is not only with the factories, also with the automotive, the products which we sell, or which are, your consumers are using. Now, for a factory point of view, there are certain benefits. One benefit is you have visibility. You have real-time decision-making capability. Third thing is, like Mr. Vinayak was mentioning, capex avoidance. Suppose what some of the machines are not utilized properly. Many times what happens is, still the manufacturing head will say, boss, I again need another machine. I again need another machine. So this machine avoidance can be done. You know what capacity you have in the plants, what OEE you have, what OLE you have, what kind of safety, quality, productivity you can monitor and manage. I think the features are enormous. Traditional systems are also available, but it is not real time. It cannot communicate. It cannot transmit data on a real time basis to your mobile phone, to your dashboard, to the management layer. So the decision making becomes enormously fast, and you can reduce your cost drastically. I'll give an example just to conclude. This factory, what I'm talking about, Pune, we are actually having 30% less manpower from a traditional factory. So you can easily understand. So this is a benefit what we can get. If things are smart enough, things can communicate. Obviously, you don't have people to run the show like that. So you can still manage without the people. So that's the
Great.
biggest advantage in terms of cost saving also.
Perfect. Any thoughts, Jitendra, you would like to add that how IoT on the shop floor? You mentioned about some of those, and any other aspects around these new age technologies, maybe IoT or artificial intelligence, so to say, which can add value, particularly in your sector?
So, Atul, in pharmaceutical sector, many opportunities are there, especially for the machine learning.
Okay.
Because what we see in our R&D, and because that the cycle of any drug development is 10 years, and out of 10, 7 to 8 years goes only for your formula designing and ingredient designing and all. So the clinical trial, what we are talking about and what we are looking in the current context is the maximum longest phase. So machine learning and the wearable device will cut down the clinical trial time. This is what the machine learning is, the new age technology for all the novel drug discovery companies. That's number one. Yeah. IoT definitely will bring the speed, accuracy, and the cost, no doubt about that. Also integrating with your intelligent data for decision supporting and connected world, especially to the like your balances, HPLCs, plant, everything is connected for a better decision. At this particular point, what we see is the data is in silos.
Yeah.
And taking a 360-degree view of any decision support is quite challenging. So IoT, ML, this all technology integrate and end of the day give me a 360-degree view for decision support. That will be the best stage to implement all these things.
Great, well said, well articulated, Jitenji. I think any parting remarks, Farhan, from your side, please.
Yeah, I think you know that in our industry, the old bottle play a very significant role.
Yeah.
In our product, the bottle is about 40 to 45% cost that we carry in as a part of our cost of production.
Sure.
So if we combine with old bottle and a new bottle, our COP come down drastically. So price difference is huge. And we generally work for petty pack system where the old bottle supplier supplies and we are paying on the basis of the number of bottles being used for a product.
Yeah.
But sometime what we found that the quality of old bottle is being rejected in some time it's going to is very high, but sometime it's going very smooth. So we are the liquor company is always hungry for old bottle because of the cost element, and we are not be able to identify why there is a spike which is happening, and the reason when we put the system in place, then we realize that the manpower which is coming for cleaning and another process of a bottle, it's creating a problem. Because the moment manpower changes, the quality of bottle decrease. If a manpower sustain for a certain level, my quality is going to be increased. So such elements, is very important to take a business decision, and technologies always help a business to grow or increase the productivity. So this is the solutions that we deployed through IoT. It helps a lot.
Wow. I think that was super, and I think I also want to give a shocker to Parna. So Parna, you mentioned that we will be going to spend around $10 billion every year.
Yeah.
I think our Chinese counterparts, unfortunate it may sound, but the fact is they are spending to the tune of almost $250 to $300 billion every year. And they did so last year as well. I'm not too sure about how it'll fare this year, but we can well imagine $300 billion being spent only on IoT and related technologies to bring automation and that degree of transformation in their processes across the industry verticals. You can well imagine the kind of repeatability of processes, quality, and all which they'll be able to achieve, and at what cost. The cost may be high on the very first year, but then in the subsequent ensuing years, you can take care of lower rejections, faster throughputs, flexibility of productions, and all that will happen. So I hope that from a government standpoint also, the funds
so
allocation.
what the secretary was saying yesterday, Ajay Sawhney, I believe all of us know him.
Yeah.
So Ajay Sani was telling very interestingly that this $10 billion addition per annum. So that means if this is 10 year, 75,000 crore this year, next year will be 150,000 crore, and then plus like this. Every year 10,000 crore addition. Second point, what you were saying is this will be indigenous. So currently, what is you're importing technology from every country. So if you can do indigenous technology, the advantage adaptability also. So that's an advantage. Obviously, yes, agreed. I mean, we are at least 30 years behind China for sure in terms of technology, and there is no doubt in this discussion or the debate for sure.
I agree.
Exactly.
Correct. I think Aditya, are you there? How much time do we have? Do we have time for questions, or what's the plan?
We are slightly running out of time, Mr. Atul.
Okay, so should we conclude in the last 1 minute? I can just sum it up.
Yes, Mr. Atul.
Great. So I think we've had a good discussion, great insights from the fellow panelists. I think just to sum up in a minute, it's very important that using these technologies, we build that degree of transparency and trust, and reduce the supply chain costs, so to say, and associated risk, of course. And using these insights, we can also, as Vinayak ji, Parna, and Jiten ji, and also Farhan also mentioned, we can optimize our inventory levels. Okay, if we have a clear view of what's available, what's not available, you can order just in time. Okay, and maybe also have a handle on what kind of losses are happening even in storage. So that's very important. Then you can have a great handle on production planning, so that you can have that flexibility of making batches more frequently with lesser changeover times. And then, as we also discussed about the asset utilization, which can differ, a capex, so to say, is also highlighted if you have these kind of technologies. Importantly, when you have real-time data, you don't have to look at the historical things, that what happened last day, what happened last week or last month. You will have a view of the data. You will have exception alerts, and then accordingly, based on those insights, you can act at that very moment, so you don't lose that period to make the course corrections, to be running at the most optimal levels. I think, but before everybody listening to us jumps and starts an IoT initiative or an AI initiative, I think we'll have to factor the cultural aspect, the adaptability, and also the cybersecurity aspects linked to these new age technologies, so that we are covered from that stand, because we have to do some pilots. And last but not the least, I think, is capability building within your own team. Digital transformation, you can't outsource it to a consultant. You have to start within first. You have to create capabilities within your team, and then create some success stories internally, small ones maybe, and then scale it out either horizontally or even vertically, as the appetite of the enterprise allows you to. I think that's the core. And I think we had a great session. Thank you so much again, Exito team, for this opportunity. And thank you all the panelists for your time. We are run out of time, but of course, we had a great session. Thank you so much.